All right, so my disclaimer here is that I'm hoping to give this presentation at Openwest next spring. So what you're seeing here is kind of a first iteration. And as such, please give me some feedback afterwards. Do it on the plug list or email me directly, whatever. Just let me know if there are things that you liked, things you didn't like, things that were missing that you wish were included. And we'll go from there. A little bit about me. As Steve kind of inferred, I've been using Linux for a while, about 94, 95. Mostly Red Hat and its derivations. I'm running, this is Karora 21 on here, which is like a Fedora with all the non-free stuff on top of it, so that I can use Chrome and Flash and other other video type stuff that may or may not be DRM happy. As far as video stuff goes, I've been doing video stuff since I was just a kid. I've got some videos here to kind of prove it, as it were. One problem, though, is that the audio here is coming out of my laptop, because if I'm hooked up to HDMI, it will only go through the HDMI. Anyway, so let's come over here, and this is from about 1989.
You went over to this guy's house.
Right.
You pried a pit bull like a dog.
Right.
Off of his face.
With a crowbar.
So anyway, that was a while ago. You didn't get to see me, but yeah, I've got the bleached hair and the mullet and everything. So, and then in the mid '90s, I said, well, I really want to get into digital video, and so I got a Matrox G400, and the Matrox G400 was a PCI card. It was just a video card, but it had a bunch of pins so that you could slap a daughter card onto it that would give you the ability to capture and playback 720 by 480, so SD video. And it had this big, long, thick cable that came out and went to a breakout box that had your S video and your composite video, audio-video connections. And so I started doing some video editing with my computer then, and at the time I was using Windows, and I was using ULEAD Media Studio Pro, and that influenced me long term, because I got really used to that program, and the programs that I use now are kind of because that's what I was used to, and that's kind of what I liked. But let me show you something that I did back then. You get an idea of the kind of work I was doing.
Does this ever happen to you? Dotted lines and perforations got you down? Not anymore! Introducing the AmazoCut, a revolutionary breakthrough in cutting technology. You'll find cutting is a delight with this remarkable appliance. Tired of wrestling with frustrating and troublesome electrical tape? With AmazoCut, say goodbye to sticky tangles and snarls. AmazoCut saves the day! Yes, the high-tech pressure-treated...
Okay, so that was 1998, 99, somewhere in there. And then I had ULEAD Media Studio running on like a Windows 98 and then a Windows 2000 desktop. And I just kind of stayed with Windows 2000 because I didn't really, I started hearing all these really nasty things about XP. And so when XP came out, I just stayed with Windows 2000. And then when Windows 7 came out, I just kind of like stayed with Windows 2000. And finally, I said, I've got to get off Windows 2000, but I don't really want to go to a newer version of Windows. And I'm using Linux for everything else that I do. So there's got to be a way in Linux to do video editing. So I made the jump. It wasn't an easy jump because there were some things that I was really used to, but I made the jump, and now I do everything in Linux. I have a Mac Mini with Final Cut Pro installed on it. I paid $300 for Final Cut Pro, and I never use it. So The tools that I have in Linux do really well for what I'm doing. I think in the presentation description that Steve sent out, he mentioned that I'm doing all the video for Openwest, and that means that every presentation gets recorded, audio and video. We mix those together. We put some titles at the beginning. What's that?
Every presentation.
In theory. In theory. Sometimes the audio doesn't get recorded. Sometimes the video is so horrible because somebody didn't, the video's like that because somebody didn't put the tripod up right or whatever. But most of them, we had 166 videos up on YouTube this year from this last Openwest. And so we slapped some titles on the beginning. We mixed the audio and the video together, and we upload that to YouTube. And so this year, 166. That's pretty good. Out of how many presentations did we?
It was just over 200.
Okay, so we missed 40 or so. I think we're doing pretty good.
Yep.
All right. Oh, and I'm working on a documentary right now. We'll talk about that a little bit if you want. So the first thing I wanted to talk about are some of the basics. Playing video in Linux. Now, who here has used VLC? A lot of hands go up. VLC is a popular program because it's not just Linux. It's available on just about every platform. Mplayer. Who's used Mplayer? A little bit. Mplayer's it's a little harder to use because it doesn't give you a nice GUI like VLC does. And Zine kind of reminds me of, you guys remember Cyber DVD for Windows? Yeah, that's what Zine kind of reminds me of. But it gives you a nice little GUI for playing videos. So let's talk a little bit about VLC. Oh, look, there is a screenshot, a snapshot right there from the documentary I'm working on. It's about a guy named Ernie Jimenez who just shot the world record rifle shot with open sights, 2,240 yards, and I was there to document it, and so I'm working on that right now. But anyway, this is VLC. You can see it's everything you need for, you got to play, pause, next track, stop. It's got you can reskin the whole thing, but this is the default skin, and it works really well. Really good subtitle support. Let's go on to the. It's available for lots of different. I have it on my phone. I don't have an iOS device, but I understand it's available for iOS as well. And it supports just about every codec that you would throw at it without you having to load those onto your system. It comes with everything you need. It'll play DVDs, VCDs. I don't know. Does anybody play VCDs anymore? I used to watch Star Trek Enterprise on SVCDs. It's a great audio player as well. Excellent subtitle support, and it has some logic in it for streaming video from one instance of VLC to another, or using it to be as an origin for video streams to other broadcasting type things. I haven't really played with that a lot, but that functionality's in there. Has anybody done streaming with VLC at all? A little bit? Yeah? Does it work good?
It was a little bit hard to set up, but once it got set up, it worked pretty good.
One thing that I remember that people use VLC for, Bluray, playing Blu-rays in Linux is kind of a pain in the butt because of the Blu-ray encryption. And one of the ways that people have gotten around that is they use this program called MKV Merge or something like that. And you can use that to set up a stream that then VLC can, read. So you're basically streaming the video from your Blu-ray disc to VLC, and then you can watch it. Kind of a round the back way to watch a Blu-ray. So here's Mplayer. A lot of the video work that I've done over the last 10, 12 years has been concerts and stuff. I was like the tech guy for a band that was kind of progressive rock, but also did Pink Floyd tribute shows, and so a lot of this is from a show last fall, which was like the very last Floyd show, and I did it from like 5 different camera angles, and then used my editor to edit all those together. Mplayer, as I mentioned, it's very powerful, but it doesn't give you a nice GUI. Now there are forks of Mplayer like Gmplayer and Splayer, some others that give you MPV. I understand is really cool. I haven't checked it out though. It's incredibly powerful. It has a steeper learning curve. You want to look at the man page, man Mplayer. You can see tons and tons of options. One thing that we might want to check out here is there's the ability to play. You can choose the video output device. Most of the times it's like your screen, it's a X video or something like that. But there's an interesting one. Let me see if I can actually make this happen. Okay, so this is just in a terminal window here.
Does this ever happen to you? Dotted lines and perforations got you down? Not anymore. Introducing the Cut, a revolutionary
So this is
cutting technology. You'll find cutting is a delight with this remarkable appliance.
it's playing the video as ASCII art. So anyway, some of these things are useful. Okay, so Zine is another one. As I mentioned, it kind of looks like your circa 2000 DVD player for Windows, but it's a great little utility for playing video files, and it has little buttons down there for playing DVDs and whatnot. So it has a handy GUI. There are some derivatives of Zine that you may have heard of. Caffeine and the GNOME has Totem. Hi, Victor. Victor, our leader of Utah Open Source. There's some other video players that I didn't include, but I just want to mention them so that you can maybe go out and take note of them. But Miro is one that has a lot of streaming stuff built into it. Videos is the new default video player for GNOME. It's kind of the new version of Totem. And Banshee is another it's kind of like VLC in that it plays everything: music, videos, every kind of media that you could possibly want to throw at. Are there any others that you've used that I didn't mention? Okay. If you think of one, email me and I'll see if it's worth including. Okay, next, I wanted to talk about some simple utilities for doing video editing or conversion. The first one is pitivity, whatever, this thing. This actually, I was really torn on whether I should include this in the simple video editor category or more advanced, because they are making great strides at making this a much more advanced video editor. In the past, it has been a kind of like your home user, like iMovie type editor. Didn't give you the ability to have multiple tracks, but now it does. You can have multiple video and audio tracks, and you can do all kinds of stuff. In the last year or so, they've added tons of effects and transitions, but I don't really know much about it. I threw together this little example just so I can take a screenshot. It uses the Gstreamer framework, which is a little different. Gstreamer is a really powerful library for doing all kinds of things with audio and video. We are using it with Utah open source. Jared Smith and I have been working on building a little box that we can plug HDMI into from the projector in a conference situation, and it will capture the projector output and also send it out to the projector. But when we're not doing a presentation, we can actually generate some video out to the projector so that we can have like commercials or something, or information in between sessions. And that's all being done with Gstreamer and Python. This application, Pitivy, is written in Python. As I mentioned, it's got a lot of recent work on effects and transitions, and this is one to keep your eye on because it looks pretty cool. Next is AVI demux, which you're thinking, who uses AVIs anymore? But AVI demux is actually a really cool program. Who's used Virtual Dub on Windows? You used it before? So AVI demux is like Virtual Dub for Windows. It gives you the ability, to do conversions basically. So you can come in, you can open a file, and then come down here and say, I want the video output to be, Mpeg 4 in this case through the X264, so an H264 codec. I want the audio to be Apple's advanced audio codec, and then you can go in and configure that. You can say I want it to be 64 kilobits per second or whatever. And then I want this to be in an Mpeg 4 version 2 container, or you can pick an AVI container and you can pick Xvid. You can do all that, and then finally what you can do is you can come down here and say, well, I only want the video to start from here and here. So you can pick like a 5-second splice of the whole clip that you're looking at that you want saved out. So it lets you do simple edits. And it lets you convert your videos to other formats. In the filters for both the audio and video, you can do all kinds of stuff. You can take the video and flip it sideways. You can de-interlace. You can de-noise. You can change it so it's all black and white. There's a lot of different filters in there for doing that kind of stuff. So this is really kind of a utility more than something you would actually use to do some creative video editing, but it's pretty cool. So yeah, the filter packs let you do all kinds of stuff. You can easily trim, resize, crop, de-interlace, denoise, resample, desaturate, all that kind of stuff. And who's used Handbrake? I expect to see a few hands here. Handbrake is traditionally used for ripping DVDs. But the Handbrake folks will be quick to make sure that you don't call it a DVD ripper, because ripping implies that you're breaking encryption. They don't actually do the encryption themselves. They rely on some external libraries to do that. Yes?
For the record, I'm just making a backup copy of my DVD.
Okay. That's what we all do.
That's what I'm legally entitled to do.
Just don't make offsite backup copies of
Yes,
DVDs.
yes.
That's where you get in trouble.
I'm just doing backup copies for Netflix. If they ever want them, they'll find them at my house. It's all security, If their warehouse burns down, they'll know where to find the backups. So anyway, Handbrake's pretty cool. Once you put a DVD in. It'll scan the DVD and identify the most likely title on the DVD that has the longest amount of video, and pre-select that as the default one that you want to convert. And then you can go through and say, these are the parameters for the video. I want this. You can say the one downside that Handbrake has is you can only create Mpeg-4 or Matroska MKV files. But that's mostly what most people want. But you couldn't create like an Mpeg file or an AVI or something like that with Handbrake. You're kind of stuck with those two formats. But you can embed subtitles. You can embed multiple audio tracks, and you can set up chapters and tags. It's pretty cool. And as I was mentioning to Kelly before the meeting began, that you can use this to do Blu-rays as well, but you have to use another tool to extract the Blu-ray title as kind of like an unencrypted MKV, and then you can use Handbrake to go through and convert it to whatever. You can use Handbrake to say, I want this 1080p to be, I want a 720p version of this, and I want the subtitles, and I want the audio and whatever. So you can do all that with Handbrake. And it is available on just about every platform as well. You can also use it as the fact that you can use that use it to transcode just MKV files is an example that it supports other file sources as well. So any questions about Handbrake? Okay. So I think this is probably why most people showed up at the meeting today. We want to talk about some more advanced editing, and this is kind of where my presentation starts to degrade, because all I really got for you guys is the editor that I use, which is Kdenlive. So let's skip past that for a minute and talk about some of these others. Okay, Blender. You may have heard of Blender. Blender is like a 3D modeling application. But there is, in the last, I think it was about 5 years ago, somebody added a bunch of video editing capabilities to Blender. So I think if you already are familiar with the way Blender works, which is really bizarrely, Blender has a kind of a very bizarre workflow compared to other Linux applications. But if you're familiar with that, it's probably easy for you to get in and start doing video editing with Blender. At the same time, you're right there where you can include 3D animations in your videos. So that's really cool. OpenShot is an MLT. MLT is Media Lovin' Toolkit. And that's a library that I think three of these are written in MLT. OpenShot is one of those, and it's written in Python. Cinelera, Kelly mentioned that he's used Cinelera. Cinelera has been around for a long time. It's a pain in the butt to use, but you can use it and it produces good output. I know there are some real serious people out there that use it all the time. I've tried to use it and I just keep going back to Kdenlive. Shotcut is another. From what I understand about Shotcut, Shotcut was created by one of the guys that worked on Kdenlive and decided he had some better ideas, and so he went out and created Shotcut. It still uses the MLT library on the back end, but it does things a little differently on the front end. So that's one to kind of keep it. There's active development going on with Shotcut, and it looks pretty cool. Lightworks is like a very professional level. They have a free version, which is free, obviously, but it's kind of hobbled with things that you can and can't do. I think you can only generate files that you can upload to YouTube, basically. You couldn't create lossless backups of your videos. Lightworks, they have for $299. You can buy a license and have the professional version of Lightworks. And they say that there are professional film editors that use Lightworks on a daily basis. So that's one. I mentioned that even though most of everything else we're talking about here is open source, but Lightworks is, I think they have, some of their stuff is open source, but they have some stuff that if you buy the Pro version, you get some stuff that's not open source. And the professional version looks very nice. I played around with the free version and kind of got frustrated with the things that I couldn't do. But the paid version looks pretty nice. Okay, any questions so far? Has anybody used anything else for editing video on Linux? I know there's probably a half dozen others that I didn't mention that I didn't think were worth mentioning. There was one called Kino, K-I-N-O. Yeah, Kino was developed by the DV Grab people, so it was kind of the home video editor for people using DV cameras. So once HD came out, DV is kind of an SD video protocol, and so once HD came out, Kino kind of went by the wayside because it just couldn't handle HD video. But if for some reason you've got a whole stack of DV tapes at home and you want to capture them and stuff, Kino works great. Okay, so let's talk about Kdenlive. So here's a screenshot of, this is an actual screenshot of some work that I'm doing on the documentary project. And let me point out some of the different elements here. Obviously over on that side, you've got the project monitor, and it lets you see, what the output's going to look like. You can also flip over this tab here, the clip monitor, and look at an individual clip. Over here's your list of clips, your project tree, and there's a bunch of them in this project. Down here are the different tracks where you've got things assigned, and each of these video tracks, there's 4 video tracks here, and you can see the video tracks have the top is video and the bottom shows an audio waveform. And then in cases like right here, you have 2 video tracks that overlap, and then there's this little yellow box right there that represents a transition. So we're doing kind of like a crossfade, a dissolve between this one and this one. So when you're playing it, it goes across, you'll see a dissolve between this one and this one, and then here we're dissolving from this one to this one. And then this is a title, as you can see over there. There's a title on top of the frame there. This is a title sitting on top of this video. And then down here is some audio. One of the things, if you've done any kind of interviewing of people, especially people who never really been interviewed before, they say lots of ums and ands. So like on this project, I'm just cutting ums and ands out left and right, and then finding some B-roll footage to put over the top of that so that you can't tell that he's umming and anding. So that's nice because then you can do all your cuts and put some video on top of it. The way this is viewed is kind of top down, unless you're doing a transition. Whatever's on top, you'll see in front of whatever's below it. So, and then here's the effect stack. This one clip that has the red around it is the currently selected clip, and that has a mute effect on it. So there's no sound from that clip at that point right there. So that's Kdenlive. Let's talk about some of its features. It's written in C++, uses the Qt library. So I think that Kdenlive is actually available for Windows, and it may be available for Mac. I'm not sure, but it is now an official KDE application. So the KDE project has adopted it as their official video editor. It supports lots of different SD and HD input and output formats. I think it even supports some 4K stuff now. And lots of degrees of creativity. You can do effects, transitions, lots of transformations in that you can take the video and rotate it. You can crop it. You can do perspective effects. You can do composition where you put video on top of something else, overlaying, that kind of thing. And then titles. The titles are the one thing, and some of the transitions are one things that I kind of miss about ULead Media Studio in the Windows world, because the Media Studio Pro did such a good job of giving you nice 3D type titles and 3D effects, so you could like have rotating boxes and things like that, or like you'd be watching video and it would get folded up into a box and then roll off the screen or stuff like that. Kdenlive doesn't give you that kind of pizzazz, I guess. It'll give you some wipes. It'll give you some nice dissolves. You can fade to a color, that sort of thing. But some of those fancier 3D animation type transitions and effects are not there. But in the professional world of video editing, they're frowned upon anyway. So I'm not missing them too bad. But for your home movies with your kids and stuff, you might think, oh, well, I wish I had some corny, cheesy, rolling box effect or something, but it's not going to be there. You have to go to iMovie or Windows Movie Maker or something like that. Kdenlive, what I don't like. So, this may be, I actually think this is a limitation of MLT, but MLT, everything is broken up by the frame. So if you want to do any kind of editing that is more precise than the frame, and a frame is like a 60th of a second or a 30th of a second or a 24th of the second, depending on the frame rate. If you want to do anything more precise than that, you're out of luck. So that creates a problem for me. Most of the time that's not a problem, but it creates a problem for me when I'm editing 5 different cameras for a live performance, and I'm synchronizing the video from those 5 cameras with audio that I got from the soundboard, and trying to get that just right so that everything looks perfect, so that the cymbal hits, you hear them at the same time you see them. It's hard, and that's one thing that programs like Adobe Premiere and Final Cut Pro make it really easy to do that. But whereas Kdenlive, not so easy. I've managed to get pretty good at it, but not so easy. Development has slowed over the last 2 or 3 years, but it's picked back up. Some other thoughts. I'm still using the 0.9 branch, but the KDE folks, like I said, have adopted this as their official video editor, and so they've put out a couple of new versions since then. And I haven't really played with them very much, but they look and act a little bit different than the 0.9 branch, but it looks like they still maintained all the functionality, so there's that. And they're tied in with the new, the KDE 5 framework. So now we talk about some command line tools, which I think is why John's here. A lot of these programs make very heavy leverage of Ffmpeg, which is like a library for doing all kinds of things with video and audio. And so let me show you one thing that we can do with Ffmpeg as an example. Let me come over here and let's blow that up so you see what we're doing. Ffmpeg, if I can spell it right. We'll give it an input file. We'll give it that a MazoCut video. And then let's say AOC audio.mp3. So what I just did was I just created an MP3 of the video. So that's a really easy way to just strip the audio out, compress it as an MP3. I kind of went with defaults here. It says down here that it went with a 128K bit rate. So you're kind of stuck with, but you can add options. You can say, oh, I want the audio to be mono. I want it to use a 22 point something kilohertz sample rate. You can do all that stuff with the command line. You just have to look at the man page. So. Mencoder comes from the same people that wrote Mplayer, and it gives you a lot of that same kind of power where you can go in and say, instead of just play a video, I want to take this video as input and do these things to it. And there's tons of different options that you can do. Now, the reason I mentioned John is because he was asking about, is there a way to capture some video every so often and convert it to another format and like set up a cron job to do this every so often? Yeah, so you can do that with FFmpeg and mencoder. I would look at the Video for Linux tools, V4L, V number 4L. Those tools will give you the ability to access video devices that are connected to the system, and then you can basically use those as your input, and then use FFmpeg to say, just grab 15 seconds of video from this, save it out to this MPEG-4 file, with and resize it, whatever. You can do all that. FFmpeg is your savior. Transcode is another program that does all these things as well. It's older. Generally, I use FFmpeg over Transcode any day. But it's there. If for some reason you find some bug in FFmpeg and you can't get around it, go check out Transcode. Some other useful utilities. Excuse me. Sub downloader. Who likes watching videos with subtitles? I have a hearing problem, so I do it all the time. Sub downloader, there's all these different websites that offer subtitles for videos. We're not going to talk about where those videos come from, but they are available, and the subtitles, sync up with those perfectly. So you can use sub downloader to download those subtitles, and then you can watch those with VLC or Mplayer or whatever. YouTube DL is a great way to just yank a video off of YouTube and save it as a MP4 on your system. There are options to that, but the easiest thing is just put your YouTube URL as the first parameter, and it'll download it, stick it in your directory, and then you can use it in your video editor. That's pretty handy. Any questions so far? Okay. So let's do a live demo. This is going to take a second to set up. So I'm going to do the whole workflow here. We're going to have Rachel come up in a second. Okay. We got our green screen. This is the really cheap way to do this. I have like a PVC frame at home that I made to do this kind of stuff. And typically when I do green screens, I have about 5 different lights that I use, front, side, and back, to make sure it's lit well. But we will make do with what light we have and see how well it works. You can buy green screens online pretty cheap, but there's nothing like a twin-size bed sheet, Okay. All right, Rachel, come on up. Here's your mic. So this is what when we do the Openwest stuff, we record the audio separately. So I'm going to have you stand over there in front of the screen. And make sure that's got power. Maybe just throw that in your pocket, that battery pack. All right, let's get an audio test here, just for.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so that's recording. Okay, what should we have Rachel say? Just have her introduce herself. Same thing you said at the beginning, where you were talking about, you know, what you do with Linux and.
What I do with
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Introduce the BYU Linux.
Introduce. Oh no, we should have Tyler up here for that.
Okay, let's. All right, you're on. Tell us about your Linux background.
2 months ago, I started dating Tyler, and he uses Linux, and he told me that I should use it. And so I installed it as my main OS on my laptop out of pure faith that I could use it. And that's what I have to use now. But it's good for IT, because I have to take some CS classes. So I do all my programs in Vim and compile them in the terminal.
Cool. Okay, great. Thank you for being so willing to endure this punishment. Okay, you can take that off, and then we'll go through the abbreviated process that I go through when I'm doing these Openwest videos.
So if there's 146 presentations, you guys do this 146 times?
Well, we were talking about the fact that, you know, there was over 200, and we have 166 uploaded, so some of those didn't make it. Okay, so I will grab the video here.
When he says some of them didn't make it, it's not his fault. It's the volunteers who fell through.
So do you have another screen you're working on that we can't see?
Yeah. So I'm going to pull this over so you can see what's going on here. Okay, so we come in here. Let's see, there's 20th of October right there. So if we come down and open that with VLC. You're on. Tell us about your Linux background.
2 months ago, I started dating Tyler.
Okay, so we have that. I'm going to copy that file. We'll copy that to, I don't know, temp. Okay. Okay, so that's done. We have the that. Now we need the audio from the audio recorder. We'll do pretty much the same thing with that.
How much is something like that?
This right here is about $100. And they, you know, this is really simple. It records as a WAV or an MP3, and they just go on up with more and more capabilities. Tascam makes some that are like 4 channels, so you can have, you know, different, you know, like have 4 different mics if you want.
Do you do wave mostly for lossless, or do you?
What's that?
Do you do wave for lossless, or do you do MP3 usually?
I do MP3. This is like 192K MP3s. They're fine for what we're doing. Okay, so okay. So we pull that over here, throws everything into a music directory, and here's our file. We can listen to it.
What I do with Linux?
Okay, so we have that. Let's copy that over into our temp directory. And then we'll fire up Kdenlive.
Sure.
I'm good. Okay, so workflow in Kdenlive. We're going to come in here, add clips. We're going to go to temp. Okay, there's our MTS, that's the video. And then there's our audio. You're on. Tell us about your Linux background.
2 months ago, I started dating Tyler, and he uses Linux, and he told me that I should use it. And so I installed it as my main OS on my laptop out of pure faith that I could use it. And that's what I have to use now. But it's good for IT.
Okay, so you see the blue here. You can use these buttons down here to mark the beginning and ending of a zone. Now what I can do is just drag this down onto a track down here. And okay, but she's against a green screen, so we need to put something behind her. Like, I don't know, let's go out and find something. Oh, crap. Okay, hang on. Maybe I have something here that we can use rather than trying to go out. Okay. No, I thought we were good. No, disconnect from that. PRC wireless. Okay. Okay. So let's just get she says she's going to be working in IT, so let's find a data center picture here. Oh, that's awesome. We can grab that and save that. Okay. And we can go over here, back over to now, if we just look at the clip there, that's what we're looking at. So now what we want to do is do the whole green screen effect so that she's basically sitting on top of that. So the way that we do that is we create a transition. We create a composite transition for the whole clip. And then we add a blue screen effect to the top one. And we want to change the color. you're on. Tell us about your Linux background.
2 months ago, I started dating Tyler, and he uses Linux, and he told me that I should use it. And so I installed it as my main OS on my laptop out of pure.
Unfortunately, without the extra lighting that I would normally use for a green screen type thing, you get some of that edge artifacting when you do that. But
What does the extra lighting do?
it gives you some really solid edges for the software to match on. Plus, we can have one problem when you're doing green screens is trying to make sure that the person in front of the screen isn't projecting a shadow onto the screen that screws up with the chroma keying, the matching of the color.
Lights coming in multiple angles, it wipes out
Right,
the-
so you have light on the screen, you have light from two directions on the subject, you have a backlight on the subject, kind of gives them shiny hair, but it gives them a defined edge. So, but we did pretty good. I figured the light in here is diffuse enough with these ugly fluorescent lights that we'd be able to do it. We did pretty good. She looks like she's standing in front of a window or something at the data center. And then matching the audio, I'm not going to do that, but essentially what we do is come in here and all right, so that's recording.
What I do with Linux? And it just, I don't know, we should have Tyler up here for that. 2 months ago, I started dating Tyler, and he uses Linux, and he told me that I should use it. And so I installed it as my main OS on my laptop out of pure faith that I could use it. And that's what I have to use now. But it's good for IT, because I have to take some CS classes.
Okay, so we have that. I cut it a little too soon, but we can pull that and bring it over. We'll see how close I got just by guessing it. We can come up here and turn off the audio for that track. Back this up and. Tell us about your Linux background.
2 months ago, I started dating Tyler.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Linux, and he told me that I should use it. And so I installed it as my main OS.
Now this clip is it's a stereo clip, but we're only getting audio on one side because the mic. So we can come in here and add an effect that copies. I don't usually use a trackpad to do this stuff, but we can copy the left to the right. Let's get rid of this pan.
And how do you adjust the audio to, I mean, it's probably some type of visual where you're looking at her lips and trying to figure out, is there like a minus and a plus or something?
So what I do, if you have audio from the camera, you can just zoom in, and you can, you can match the peaks and the valleys between the two. Oops. But yeah, once you zoom in, you can kind of match the peaks and the valleys between the two and line them up that way. But what I'll do is I'll go in and use an effect to pan the video to the left side and pan the audio, the dedicated audio to the right side, put on my headphones and just play it until they, and then I'll come down here and move this one over a little bit.
So you listen to both audios in 2 different ears and
Yeah.
trying to match them up. Interesting.
So there's your live demo. What do you think? That give you
Good, yeah.
Okay, so now we're done with this. We want to render it. We come up here to project. Normally we would save it, which I probably should have done to begin with, but go ahead and do a render. And then in rendering you can say, okay, I want up here you can choose all kinds of different stuff here. You can create a DVD. You're not creating a DVD, you're creating a video object, a bob. Websites, say I wanted to upload this to YouTube, and then I can come down here and give it a name, Rachel WebM, and I want to do progressive, and yes, I want to export to audio, render it. So while that's doing that, and one really cool thing about Kdenlive is because it's using the MLT stuff on the back end, you can continue to edit while it's rendering. You can do stuff, you can close this all out and open a new project and start working on it, because this is really just happening in the background. So what I wanted to show you is this DVD wizard. This, if you want to create a DVD, once you had those video object files, those BOBs, you can come in here and drop some of those in, add movie files, just drop those in here, and then it'll give you the ability to create a little menu and whatnot, and then it'll create an ISO image file that you can then use K3B or another program to burn to a DVD. And it works really good. Okay, let's go back to the render, see where we're at. Oh, it's crunching. Any questions while it's rendering?
So how do you learn all this?
Just sitting down. I mean, this is very similar. The workflow, anyway, is very similar to what I was doing with Media Studio Pro. And so just sitting down and playing with it. There are lots of videos on YouTube that'll show you how to do a lot of this stuff. I had to review how to do the green screen because I wanted to do that as part of the live demo. I forgot that you have to add the green screen effect. I was like looking in the composite transition trying to find, well, where's the color that I'm keying on? Well, it's not even in the transition at all. It's in that blue screen effect. So
when you're not editing videos for Openwest, do you do this for a living, or?
No, I'm a programmer. I'm an aspiring videographer, I guess. I mentioned before that I'm working on a documentary, and I guess I can show you. This doesn't have any music.
In Antelope Valley, California, lives a long-range shooter named Ernie Jimenez.
There'll be music here, it'll be cool. It'll be kind of like jazzy or something. I don't know.
Are you narrating?
What's that?
Are you narrating? Is that
Yeah. And I don't know if I'll be the narration in the final product, but I had to put something there.
Yeah, when it comes to music, you got to worry about music rights and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I looked at some. There are sites where you can download royalty-free stuff, or you can license it for like $100 or whatever. Or I have friends that are musicians that would gladly do it just for the exposure.
My specialty and my passion is long range. I like that because of its mathematical implications, as bizarre as that sounds. I'm very intrigued with the physics, very intrigued with every little aspect, dynamic of what is happening from the moment the primer strikes the projectile until it hits its target. It's just utterly fascinating to me.
Ernie is different in a few ways from most other long-range shooters. First, there's his choice of guns.
I shoot two different types of rifles. I enjoy black powder muzzleloaders, which is, I like the mid-1800s type rifle, and I also like antique military rifles. I am drawn to military rifles because they generally have a bad reputation. A lot of people don't feel that they are as good as certain specialty rifles. They believe specialty rifles are so much better at certain things.
Okay, so let's go back to our render. Oh, it's done. Okay. So
2 months ago, I started dating Tyler, and he uses Linux, and he told me that I should use it. And so I installed it as my main OS on my laptop out of pure faith that I could use it. And that's what I have to use now. But
So there we go. Cool, so we can ship that up to YouTube and...
So was it a HD video and as it was playing here?
Yeah. Yeah, that was 1080p progressive. So, any questions?
I'm curious. So you said you bought Final Cut Pro, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned some drawbacks that Kdenlive has. Does Final Cut Pro have those same drawbacks? You checked?
Kdenlive, I mean, Final Cut Pro has really cool titles and transitions and stuff. So, you know, one thing that I don't like about the Final Cut Pro is the fact that I can't just drop in these individual MTS files from my camera. I have to like I have to give it the whole SD card because there's all this other metadata that comes in there. The camera records all this metadata about which clips go with what, because on a FAT32 SD card, the biggest file can only be 4 gig. And so there's this metadata that says this file actually is married to this file because we didn't stop recording, so they're actually concatenated together. But I don't care, I can take care of that myself. But Final Cut Pro doesn't let you do any of that. If you don't have all that metadata, Final Cut Pro will say, oh, I don't know what to do with this. Or you can take those MTS files and convert them to QuickTime files, and then Final Cut Pro will be happy. But otherwise, you know, I was just like, I know what I want to do. Why don't you just let me do it? Kdenlive will let me do it. So maybe I just need to spend more time with Final Cut Pro. I mean, I'm doing what I want to do with Kdenlive. And it can do, you know, most of what I want to do. So, but yeah, that's a good question. Anything else?
I've heard of websites where you can upload where people actually have to pay to see your videos. Do you know any of those?
Well, Vimeo has that feature. I suspect that YouTube will get there someday because they're all about making money. So, but Vimeo right now, I mean, if you guys have been following the Firefly Serenity, the Con Man crowdfunded video, that the show that they created, it's kind of like a parody of the Serenity Firefly movie and show. They're charging people to watch that. Unless you crowdfund it, then you get to watch it for free. But and then
they take care of all the payments.
Yeah, exactly. And there are. My wife has been trying to get me to do something with a site called Udemy, which does. It's UDEMY, and they do like training videos. So you can produce, you know, screencasts or lectures, and upload those to Udemy and charge for them, and they handle all the billing and stuff like that for you. And I imagine there's probably some other sites like that, but those are the two that I'm aware of.
Have you done any of that yourself?
Which part?
Have they upload so that someone has to pay to watch your videos? Not
yet. People have been asking me, what am I going to do with the documentary when it's done? And I'm like, I don't know. I just want to get it done. I want to say I did it, and you know, people say, well, how are you going to distribute it? I don't know. Maybe we'll just upload it to YouTube, and maybe my second project will worry about distribution. But anyway, any other questions? Yeah.
So, coming from, there's a lot of knowledge that you assumed in this presentation that I sort of have, but not really, like the distinction between codec or container and all that. I've been Googling as you've been presenting.
Okay.
Am I talking about it?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. And I don't know if it's pertinent, but, you know, being part of user groups up and down, trying to record things like this and, you know, trying to, you know, reload video, all of that kind of consideration. I'd be interested in knowing what are the tools that would allow me to do that with Linux, because I get the feeling that it would be relatively easy if I knew which pieces were there, you know, to fit in where. Kind of like we were talking about with the HDMI blocks. But
I think that ultimately, so the question for you watching at home is, are there ways that we can do things with user groups where we have multiple inputs, like we have a projector video, we have the person giving the lecture video, and maybe something else, maybe a wide shot of the crowd. We've done some stuff here in this room for Plug before, where we've used an ATEM. Who makes that? It's basically a rack mount piece of hardware that you can plug in HDMI inputs, and then you can use an application. And we use a Mac to do it, but you can do crossfades and stuff like that. We use that to produce the keynote speeches for Openwest, and we've done some plug meetings that way as well. But with Gstreamer, in theory, we should be able to do that kind of stuff in Linux as well. And from what I understand, the ATEM hardware, there are some Linux libraries for that as well. So there are some ways that you can control it and manipulate it. There's some applications for your phone so that you can actually edit live video, switch the sources, and do crossfades and stuff from your phone.
So what about something like,
but still,
my webcam and just, I mean, I see video chat stuff set up sometimes.
right?
Can I do that in a browser? Like just something that's simple, like as much as HTML?
That's a good question. I haven't really investigated the being able to do, basically live production within a web browser. I actually used to work for a company that was trying to do that, where they were trying to do like sports broadcasting. Take a laptop with a webcam to a high school football game so that grandma can watch the kid play football. They were doing it all with Flash, but we now know that Flash is the devil, and so it would be nice if there was an alternative to Flash that did that just as well. But Flash gave you that kind of capability where you could have multiple cameras, multiple input streams. They had the ability to do live switching on the spot and send that stream up to a reflector in the cloud that would send it out to grandma and whoever else wanted to watch. Any other questions? Okay. And we'll get Rachel to sign a release so that we can. All right, well, thanks for coming. And like I said, if you guys have any feedback, things that could be done better, because this is kind of a trial run of a presentation that I'm hoping that I can give later many times. So thanks.